Hi, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening to The Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. The Angel Rock, just so you know a little bit about it, it's a show that presents an illuminating positive perspective, removing some of the shadow and mystery, and also all things within the paranormal spectrum, from angels to elementals. I'm trying to read my writing here, guys. Sorry. Ufology and aliens to time travel. We've got alternative realities, paranormal entities to cryptids, legend and lore. Examine some hauntings with some conspiracy theory thrown in there, as well as I share my knowledge from a positive perspective as a light worker. We have fantastic guests who I'm going to be mentioning very shortly that we have tonight with us. No show's ever the same. And like I said, I like to keep a well balanced mix. It's fun, entertaining, informative, and I'll leave you with a new and different perspective if you're willing to open your minds to many things you might have thought were never possible before. Um, a little bit about myself. I'm a psychic medium. I'm also crystal Reiki energy healer, soon to be Akashic Records practitioner. I am a registered nurse. And yeah, that's about it. I also have a big experience with the paranormal. I always said I never went looking for it. It found me. We were recently featured on season 4, episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings on Paranormal Survivor. And tonight I have an exciting guest for you. His name is Derrick Whiteskycloud. He's a very good friend of mine. He's also a fellow Canadian like myself, which I should have mentioned. I live in Thunder Bay, Northwestern Ontario, Canada, right on the beautiful shores of Lake Superior. We're coming to you also from 107.7 New Orleans, Louisiana. I want to give a huge shout out to Joe Montaldo. Thank you so much for having me join the UPRN radio network. Getting back to my friend Derrick, he is of Métis, Micmac, Ojibwe ancestry. He has roots in Manitoba, but his current home is in Surrey, BC. He travels extensively across the Western provinces, developing and sharing his gifts as a spiritual counselor, psychic medium, paranormal investigator, Métis artisan. And wait till you see some of the beautiful things that I have bought and I use only specifically in my own healing practices. Poet, and he's also an entertainer. He's also an author, and I could go on and on. He's got this fantastic web page. But just before we get started, I want to remind you folks, if you're listening to us on uprntalkradio.com, you're going to hear us streaming live, but you can see what we both look like on video on UPRN's YouTube channel. And we also have a live chat in there. So if you've got questions for us or any comments, we're hoping we'll have enough time to take some phone calls tonight to do some readings as well. Tune in there, please. And welcome, Derrick. I'm so glad to have you here. How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm so happy that you're here. I said I had to have you on. Derrick and I work quite closely together, actually, on a lot of different things. I've learned a lot from Derrick, as well as I want to give a shout out to my girl, Seraphine Hurley, who had her first show earlier on today, Infinite Inquisition, with our other good friend Clarissa Vasquez. And yeah, you guys are all schooling me in the paranormal. I always said I never wanted to get into the paranormal, but it has found me. And I think it's going to be part of my life's work, whether I want it or not. So now, Derrick, the other thing I did forget to mention, you are, and you say an extraterrestrial contactee. Is that how you identify it versus
Yeah, I mean, each a contactee, but being a contactee is not like this guy here in the studio. This is not the guy that I'm talking to.
Yeah.
The ones I talk to are like 8, 9 feet, 10 feet tall, and so and they look more human than you know. And I've been talking to them since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an opportunity, I could say, when I was in my 40s, to go on the ship, and I ended up being taken to their planet, and that was the cool part.
Yeah, but who you're talking about, do you want to share with our audience? I know who it is, and you've given me a very different perspective because I had always heard something negative about this particular race. But who are we talking about?
Well, basically, those are they call themselves the Annunaki.
Mm-hmm.
And to describe what they did or how I met them I not say for the first time, but how I met them. At one point, They were wearing white uniforms, and it looked
Okay.
like, and their heads. I mean, the way I saw their heads, I thought that was their head actually. They're white in an oval shape, very similar to the green guys as we would see,
Hmm.
and their masks or their facial features look like the same eyesight. Um,
So
and
would
I
they
thought,
would that be like a tall white that some people talk
well,
about
they
then?
looked like tall white until they took their face mask off.
Oh, so
And
it's actually a mask.
it was
Okay.
a uniform. Yeah, it was part of their
Okay.
mask. I can hear this. Next thing you know, they're disconnecting their helmet, and they took off their helmet. And here they're just human like you and I. They're blonde, long blonde hair, and blue eyes.
Wow.
Yeah,
No, I've heard of those as the Nordics. So like how do we get all
yeah.
these different descriptions and what did they I guess what I'm asking is how did you know that they weren't the tall Nordics or that they actually had a mask on or I have
I
so
was
many
there.
questions.
That's how they approached themselves to me when I was walking up the hill, and
Mhm.
they were calling me. They were waiting for me to come up.
Mhm.
I had this feeling I had to go somewhere, and I walked up. They
Excuse me.
were right there.
Mhm.
Uh, that was a strange thing because but when I seen them, I wasn't scared. It seemed like
Mhm.
I knew them. You know,
Right.
when you're a kid growing up, you somehow in your brain thinking to yourself, "I know you guys," or "I know of you guys." It just seemed normal.
Mhm.
And then when they took off their helmet, and one of the guys looked at me and he says, "Oh, hi, Derrick. How are you doing?" And I said, "Good." Like shock, you know, like somehow I was okay to answer him, but yet I was going like, "Okay, do I know you?" But my mind was just trying to figure this around, just get this loop out of my head, so to speak. And I
Right.
realized after they don't always like most people. They always say there's a memory loss.
Right.
And a lot of times when they do they have a way of taking some time away from you. Um, but for some reason, the last time I saw them, they allowed me to remember everything, and
Oh,
that's
and
where I
did they say
decided to
why?
say
Did they say why this last time they let you remember
because
everything?
they want others to know that they do exist, and that's the thing. They wanted others to know that this is not a myth. This is not thousands of years ago that they visited. They were saying no. They came to see us now. Apparently there's well over 100 some odd people that they have spoken to in person. I have met another guy who recently, over a year ago, when I
Hmm.
was asked to come to a UFO conference, where my good friend Johnny Enoch, big
Yeah.
shout out to him, he invited me to
Hi,
come
Johnny.
because he did a big um, presentation at
Mm.
this UFO conference where George Norrie was going to be, and he
Okay.
wanted to come, and he said, "Oh, you're a part of the presentation." I said, "Oh, really?" So I thought, okay, fine. So I went down, and I was just sitting in the background. Like I didn't come
Hmm.
in there to say, "Here I am." It's more like I just came in and sat in the background, just watched. And then Johnny did his presentation. Then he even pointed me out to the public about me that regarding the Anunnaki and so to speak. And I guess one of the people that were in the group or in the visitors that were watching the whole thing came up to me and asked me, "Can I have a talk with you?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "I need to talk to you alone, something really important." So I said, "Okay, fine." And then I found out later, he said, "You and I have a very strong connection because both you and I were both taken by the same people."
I think I know what you're talking about because that interview is on YouTube, is it
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. And
Okay,
so
go carry
basically, I
on.
started out where I'm the person that actually talked to the father, and
Hmm.
he's the guy that talked to the son.
Hmm.
And they're both the Anunnaki. But
No,
for
you
some
guys
reason,
aren't
I never
related
knew.
though, right? So
Pardon?
I'm so sorry, Derek. You
Yeah.
you guys weren't related. I didn't get. You
Yeah, he's
had
from France. His name is Sebastian. He's actually
yeah,
from France. So there's no way in heck that him and I even knew of each other.
yeah.
In fact, we didn't talk very long because I have a way. Sometimes I'm very protective of myself. I mean, I don't want everybody to come on board. Oh, I was taken by them too. Like big. Or so this way. I mean, everybody's inquisitive. I understand, and some people do make claims of them being abducted, and for some reason, I just know that energy. There's certain kind of energy you just recognize that's extraterrestrial. It's not as human as you think. I've had people actually come up to me and say, "I was taken too," and I would look at them and go like, "Okay," and I
Mm-hmm.
would feel it. And
Hmm.
if I know it's right, and then I'll send spirit saying something to me, and they'll say, okay, ask him this question, him or her this question. So I would ask him the question,
Hmm.
and then they would describe to me what happened to them. And then I would say, yeah, you were taken. I
Yeah,
would know it.
because that interview is absolutely fascinating. Actually, I didn't realize how you and Sebastian, I use the French Sebastien,
Yeah.
but well, I'm French actually. I use the English version of Potvin, but it's actually Potvin. But it's easier to understand Potvin with the way my first name's spelled. But
Okay.
I watched that interview and I was glued to the YouTube interview. I have shared that with so many people because Johnny Enoch interviewed you and Sebastian, and I thought you guys had known each other before. I didn't realize that it was this kind of
No,
meeting.
we've known each other,
Hmm.
just over a year, almost a little
Okay.
over a year. Since Johnny did the conference, that was, uh, yeah, that would be this past year. And so it was, I got to know Johnny too. I mean,
Right.
because he himself, I mean, he's involved in a lot of Egyptian UFO subjects, in fact, I even told him, I made a prediction. I told him that he's going to be one of the most famous men in the future, near future, coming up,
Hmm.
and he's being picked up by a lot of people to be part of. A lot of new programs are coming and interviews, so I'm glad he's doing quite well because
Hmm.
we need the new blood.
Hmm.
You know, you have the older folks that have been around for a long time. Some have actually have lost. Um, which is sad to see them go. But again, we have the new blood that has to carry on the same story,
Hmm.
carry on the stories from them. But they're also they themselves are also the experiencers.
Yeah.
So again, you know, and one thing that I always get a kick out of when people talk about conspiracy, UFO conspiracy, I call it UFO facts. You know,
Okay.
I've had people say to me, "Oh, well, you know, that's your theory or your conspiracy." No, it's not a conspiracy. There are people that like to hide. The government likes to hide certain things that happen with UFO abductions or UFO sightings,
Right.
but they're doing it thinking that they want to dumb us down. Well, there's a different generation that's come out now, and that different generation is they're not dumb anymore. They're not playing the dumb down.
Hmm.
They're going to go through the experience themselves. They're going to open up they're able to open up their eyes even way more than the ones that used to. And they're making changes, and changes are happening now. Um, and I've started noticing a whole new group of people coming out of the woodwork, and they're beginning to express their. If you know some of the conference, I mean, I've never been to hardly. Only my first conference was last year, UFO
Hmm.
conference. But I've actually someone told me, says, Derrick, you got to see this. And they had a UFO conference in Las Vegas,
Right.
one of the largest ones they ever had in a long, long time. People came by the thousands, by the
Oh, yeah.
thousands. And when I watched that video, I almost cried. It was so emotional for me because it was finally allowed or accepted, and people are beginning to open up more. People are actually angry with the
Hmm.
government. The government is can't dumb down people anymore.
Hmm.
They're trying. They still put that fear. They're trying to put that fear factor in
Hmm.
you, or to make you believe that um, the men in black are coming to stop you from talking.
Hmm.
They came to pay me a visit too. They told me to keep my mouth shut if I know what's best for me. And I said, you can't stop me because they'll stop you first.
Hmm.
And I said, don't mess with me because they hear me
Hmm.
and they hear you. And if you want to threaten me, they're going to come pay you a visit and you guys will be disappearing. So don't play with me or mess with me. And I wasn't afraid. And I haven't been touched since. I haven't been spoken to since.
Okay,
Uh,
so now I gotta ask you. I have to ask you because I'm always fascinated by this. What was your encounter with the Men in Black? Did they look like what, most people share, or were they the same, or, was it a little different?
well, these men in black didn't even look like we were men in black. They looked like men in gray. Uh,
Okay.
but it was just your typical. There was no expression in their face. It was very cold looking, pasty looking,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I just told them, I said, "Don't play with me." I said, "I'm
Hmm.
not afraid of you guys." I
Hmm.
said, "They told me, those guys up there told me they're keeping an eye on me, and if any time that anybody tries to threaten me, they'll come pay you guys a visit." Because basically, they're called the guardians of our planet, our universe. They're the ones that are watching over planet. If we pose a war, anything nuclear, they're going to interfere. They're going to blow up the rockets. And
I've been hearing about that, depending on, certain nuclear power plants that they've,
are the ones that interfered.
Yeah, a lot of UFO reports, and then, there'll be some kind of shutdown. But I got to ask you this too, Derrick. Depending on what you've read or what kind of research you've done, it's always the Anunnaki have a bad rap. They do. And I see that quite a bit. Like, you'll hear a lot of negative things about it. So how does that happen? Is there good and bad? Or is there just like,
there was. The planet they're from is called TM.
TAM?
And TM.
Okay.
TIAM. TM. And apparently it's not a full-size planet. It's actually almost a part of the planet's been chipped. So it's almost like as if you took a cookie and you cut a little corner out. That's gone. And it's because there was the good and the bad. There was politics involved. There was one that was looking for war. They were very abusive, and there's ones that are peaceful, peacekeepers. And there was a war amongst those two. They fought on Mars. They fought on another planet, and many died. Many perished. There was a lot of wars involved. And because they actually created migrations of different types of planetary systems, and not just our planetary system, is also others behind the planetary system. In fact, if you ever want to see them, there are times they'll actually will show themselves in their when you see some of the ships flying. Because I couldn't figure how I got from here to their planet so fast, and they said it takes about no more than an hour to get there. And they we fly through Orion's belt. That's how they would explain it. It's Orion's belt, and it suddenly just disappears. So there's a black hole in that area.
Yeah, I'd heard that before.
Right in there, and you go right in, and you're in the other side. And there's so many planets in there, lots. Venus is occupied, but they're occupied by another Venusians. They're human like us as well, but they're a little different color skin. There are planets that do exist on our universe. So and there is activity. The moon is active, but it's not.
Read my mind. I was just going to ask that next. What's going on on the dark side of the moon?
Yeah, dark side of the moon. It is active. It is. Some people say they believe it's actually not a planet. That actually it is a spaceship of some sort, and no, it's a planet, but it's been occupied for thousands and thousands of years, but it's occupied by many other type of extraterrestrials, not the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki will not waste their time on the moon. They won't waste their time on Mars. They won't waste their time here. They focus on us. We are the ones that they are focused, because we're the only youngest planetary system that is part of them. We are them. We are
are we their offspring?
We're their offspring. We are their offspring. Yeah, and
the RH negative blood and the green eyes stuff.
Yeah, and same thing. And many people that their DNA, because sometimes if you go to a doctor. And the doctor will say, I can't figure out what's going on with you, but you have the strangest kind of blood that I've never seen before, strangest kind of DNA that's different. And so they call it RH negative. They call it something else. Well, that's actually extraterrestrial, but they're not going to admit it anyways. And because they're told by the medical industry never to explain that, not to accept it, that they're thinking that maybe it's just a strange string of, no.
Well, I will tell you from a medical perspective background that with RH negative, actually my mother is RH negative, green hair, red eyes, doesn't believe in any of this stuff.
And the funny thing, your mom has been on that freaking ship too.
I know she probably has, yeah. So if you're listening. But the thing is, Because you hear about that we're descended from alien races. I've heard that theory that every different nationality is a little bit of mixed in. Then I heard, see, the main story I've heard about the Anunnaki was they came here because they needed gold, and then they created us to be like kind of the migrant worker slave race to
We
mine the
were,
gold
yeah,
for them.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay, so how
the
did this
men, the
switch? How
men
did
were the, well, basically the men were to be the slaves to do the mining of the gold, but the gold actually was two things it was used for was a food,
okay?
um, and the gold also, and it's not what you call yellow gold. It was a different kind of gold.
Yeah.
It was like a white gold.
Hmm.
It's in fact you'll find it in some areas of Egypt, some areas in Africa.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes you'll find the diamonds. They even use diamonds as a fuel, uh, as part of a fuels. But there's different varieties of gold that was used, and in fact, I remember watching them taking the gold and they would mold it in their hand, like
Okay.
it's like taking a piece of plasticine and you're playing with it, and playing with it, and playing with it till you get softened up, and then they would take it and they would eat it like as if it's like a chip.
Oh,
And
okay.
they,
Because
and they
pure gold is pretty soft, is it not? If what I understand, pure
Yeah,
gold
it
is.
was pretty
Yeah.
soft, and yet what it's for is to help excel the brain and um, I guess for your memory, and
Okay.
also, if there's any type of sickness, especially on this earth, they use it to make sure that they don't get sick. Um, and yet there was always, and I think I remember correctly, somebody was saying that gold has been used for a health
Oh yeah.
uh, needs. So, I mean, that's why I wear gold. I mean, I've been wearing gold all my life. I used to wear silver, and it would actually, my body could not handle silver to wear it. But as soon as I start wearing gold, and I was
Hmm.
wearing gold since my mom pierced my ears when I was 15 years of age as
Hmm.
part of my native culture. And, so, but she would give me gold hoops,
Hmm.
and they called, and I wore them for a while, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just change them into silver because everybody got into silver, and I was getting headaches wearing silver.
Hmm.
As soon as I took the silver off and started wearing gold again, I was fine.
Yeah, I
So
noticed that
I,
because I'm allergic to anything with nickel or anything like that. If you wear gold,
yeah,
apparently it's fine. But I also know, I wish I could remember the name of it. Our friend Augie Nost, he takes a gold supplement in, I believe it's almost like liquid drops, like silver nitrate. It's like I've got some right here, like like colloidal silver, but it's not. It's with gold. And I know somebody else. It's like it's Auric, or I'll have to look up the name, but a lot of people
yeah,
take it for health and for orally. It's supposed to really help anti-aging, memory,
it's
health.
anti-aging memory, especially people who are dealing with here it goes. People are dealing with memory loss.
Yeah.
Uh, or, for example, you're getting a lot of dementia. A lot of people getting Alzheimer's, and it's become a disease, so to speak. People are calling it a disease. As soon as basically the Alzheimer's and dementia is actually from the foods that we eat, because those are the processed foods that's causing it,
Mm-hmm.
and they are using chemicals that's used to break down the product to replace, and basically they're making things that are actually have a taste like, but they're not exactly the same, exactly what it should taste like, and it basically is no longer that real flavor, say of cheese that you're going to eat. They're going to flavor the cheese by using a chemical.
Mm-hmm.
And so the body can only maintain so much and is fighting to keep itself alive, but yet the brain is beginning to break down.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that myself when I was starting to get memory loss. I was starting to forget things, and I'm going like, "What the hell's wrong with me? I hope I'm not going to get, not going to get dementia or Alzheimer's."
Yeah.
And so I did some research on it. I found out later there's a lot of people getting flu shots. And so a lady friend of mine
Yep.
works as an alternative health practitioner who she just recently
Mm-hmm.
retired. And she said to me, she's, "Derrick, are you taking any flu shots?" I said, "No, but
Mm-hmm.
I took something that doctor prescribed for me for, I can't remember what it was." And she says, "Get off of those right now." She says, you're basically going to lose your memory. And there actually are side effects to Alzheimer's. So
Well,
anybody who gets a flu shot, don't recommend it.
well,
Uh,
I come from a big
don't need
pharma
it.
background. And as well, my youngest son is severely autistic, so I've done a lot of research on this. And the fact is that they're keeping it pretty quiet, depending on what you look at the research. But they're even with autism, and I say, you know what? Even as a nurse in university, you gloss over it. There's so many abnormal and illnesses and diseases, or disease you have to learn about. And I always say, unless you live it, it doesn't, you may have heard of it, but it doesn't become your field of interest. So for example, even with autism too, it's dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, but numbers for kids about 35 years ago was 1 in 10,000 boys. It is now 1 in 48 boys will
Yeah.
be born under and it's just perpetuating. So yeah, you're right. We could do a whole show on the flu shot because there is vaccines, and you know what, folks, you don't know what they put in it. I'm not telling people one way or the other to you do your homework, is what I'll say before you get it.
My mother died of a flu shot.
Oh, that's
she went into coma, and I warned the doctor. I told doctors no flu shot for my mother. She doesn't need it. She's not going to get sick. If she does have flu, that's fine, no big deal. Because I mean, basically, that's what when you have a flu, it's buildup of all the toxins that we have in our surroundings. And when you have your flu, you're expelling all the sickness, so you're getting rid of it. That's why you sweat it out. And my mother was healthy, very, very healthy, and the doctors said, don't give her her meds until she takes the flu shot first. So basically, they would not feed my mother for a couple of days. And this was in an elder's home. And I got really mad about it when I found out that my mother, she tried to protect herself, and my mother did take my advice. As soon as they gave her the flu shot, she was in a coma in an hour. And the next few days after, she passed away, and the flu shot killed her. I was very upset about it. And so basically, I tell people, the flu shots are not for you. If you already have a healthy body, it's going to destroy you.
This is one of my conspiracy theory shows I may do about this, because you know what? I think what scares me, that was the part I was sort of touching on about the autism, is autism is actually a spectrum as well. And paranormal, whatever, there's all kinds of spectrums on this world. And the thing is, there's certain subsets of people that we're seeing with, say, for example, I'm going to go back to autism. And with one group, and you're exactly right, I've seen, normal toddlers, 18 months old, developing exactly where they should be. And then they have the MMR shot, it's called, and within an hour, completely regressed, almost catatonic. And like I said, that's a different show we could almost do and get into it. But
yeah,
do your homework, is what I say.
And the thing is that I was very fortunate because of my skills as a medium. I was there by my mother's side before she passed, but when I watched her to help her cross over, because I know she was trying to hang on as long as she could, and my mother crossed over, but I was very fortunate and have the ability to watch my mother cross over into the spirit world, where she met my brother, and who greeted her, and that was the coolest thing ever. And but my mother somehow did not recognize him because she lost him as a baby. 6 months of age, but when she crossed over, here's a young male standing there like, "Hi, Mom, it's me, Garnet." She gives my mom a big hug, or he gives my mom a big hug, and my mother, her arms were by her side, like she didn't reach up yet. She was like, what's this? Until that memory starts coming back and thinking, this is my son. And then my mom realized this is her son, that she just wouldn't let him go. She was so happy. And that made her feel so good that she's over her guilt feeling that she lost her son. And the same with my dad, because my dad kept talking about my brother for 2 weeks before my mom passed away. And I told Dad, I said, Garnet's here. And I told him after Mom passed away, and I said, Garnet was there to see Mom first. And it made my dad feel really, really good. He was so happy about that, and then he got to spend some time with my. And then my dad passed away 3 months after because he died of a broken heart. Couldn't handle living without my mom, but yet my father was pretty cool about it, because when I got home I was just finishing a psychic party. I was then when that one night, just before my father passed away, and the phone, we have a landline, or had a landline, and the speaker turned itself on. The phone didn't ring, the speaker turned on. And I can hear people like they're in a room in a big hall and they're all talking to each other and they go, "Hey, Grant, how are you doing? And nice to see you." I can hear voices that I haven't heard in years.
Mm-hmm.
They've all passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to hear all these people greet my father. And then I called my wife into the office to come. You got to come in. You got to hear this. And as soon as she walked in, the speaker turned itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it was only for me to hear it. I mean, I was so happy to know that my father, when he crossed over, that they were all there waiting for him.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Mediumship, and we've talked about this before, Derek, that mediumship's sort of one of my newer gifts, and it's was quite a surprise for me with the mediumship, and I always take it as a sign from spirit. And I was around Christmas time a couple of years ago, and I ran into this mom, and I used to work in the NICU in the hospital. And I had a set of premature twins, and boys just goes, I guess you only need one male to perpetuate the species, right? So even as babies, if we knew we were going to have a sick little one or a preemie, you were praying it was a girl because boys always had a harder time and a higher mortality rate. Well, anyways, this was a boy and girl set of twins. Little girl did fine. Little boy had a brain bleed. They were born at like 27 weeks. And anyways, he ended up developing severe cerebral palsy. Then, as my nursing career evolved, I ended up working out in the community, ran back into his mom. His mom needed some help. I mean, she was a single mom, and this boy was getting bigger and bigger in a wheelchair, and and he had some health issues, so we had nursing in there. And then, I hadn't seen her in years. I'd hurt my back. I didn't get out very much, and it happened to be Christmas shopping, and she walked up and she hugged me. And as she hugged me, I heard her son say to me, tell my mommy I love her." And I knew. She said, "Oh, by the way, Dylan passed away a couple months ago." And I said, "This is going to sound crazy, but this is what I just heard him say. This is what I need to tell you." And that was my first sort of experience with mediumship. And I had about 3 more experiences like that weekend with either past patients or things like this. And I always say, you know what, folks, and this is for everybody listening out there, I don't believe there's any coincidences. If you see something show up in your path in a short period of time, at least 2 times start paying attention, 3 times, that's a message. So long story short, I'm so clairaudient. I mean, I'm talking to spirit all day long in my head. Like I'm not hearing voices. It's hard to explain. It's in the mind's eye. Derek gets what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
it's like sometimes like an echo.
Yeah, but the thing is with mediumship, I find it's literally like going to a different country because sometimes they'll show you symbols. Sometimes you don't see them. It's just colors. It might be a smell. It might be a taste. It blew my mind.
Have they ever come through speaking to you in different language?
Not yet. I speak 3 languages though, so we'll see if they hit me with German or something. Russian.
I had a lady come and see me for a reading.
Yeah.
And yet she didn't speak Japanese very well, or she didn't speak English very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her relatives in spirit, I said, "Can you get me to learn or speak Japanese at the same time?" So in the meantime, I'm hearing them speak Japanese to me. Yeah. I was speaking fluent Japanese.
Really?
I understand what I'm saying, and she says yes.
Uh-huh.
So I was listening, and then I would say it very, and I was translating it from spirit. And there was a girl sitting across the room who was actually a translator. She said, "You were bang on." I said, "I don't know anything about Japanese." I was speaking fluent Japanese. And then another time I was speaking Russian.
Mm-hmm.
With a family that didn't speak Russian very well. And I spoke English very well. And then I spoke to another family in another language. I don't know these languages. And yet, sometimes what they'll do is they'll help you. If you want to translate, they will help you. So, yeah. So then sometimes what they'll say, if they speak to me in Russian, "Okay, guys, just get me to reply the same thing back." So I'm speaking their language back and forth, and I never even know I could do that. So I don't. It a few times has happened for me, and there's times it doesn't work. So it depends.
I think it depends. And the beautiful thing about this, you touched on so many important points, I think, when it comes to our gifts, is the fact that especially when we're giving a reading or a message from the other side to somebody here on this planet, we're really, I always say, liken us to the mailman. We're just here to deliver the message. It's not about us. So, like for you, what a beautiful thing that you were open to this.
Yeah.
And you also touched on the point that you asked spirit, or we refer to it as spirit, but it's our guides, and we have all different kinds at different points in our lives. And the thing is, you asked, and they facilitated, they helped. And a lot of people have a hard time really grasping on that point that we can ask. I'm not a big Bible person, but even, I think it's in the Bible that it says, ask and it shall be given. It may not be given the way you're expecting, but if you're open to it, it will come.
Yeah. And then if you think about it, I think they talked about the Tower of Babel, where they said many spoke many languages. Well, the people were speaking many languages before the Tower of Babel was built. And I'll tell you one part that was kind of interesting. I do past life regressions, and I actually worked with a client in Saskatchewan, in Canada. And I was doing what happened was that friends of mine, there was 8 of us mediums that travel across Canada from province to province to province. And we would go to two cities per province, like from Victoria, Vancouver, and then Regina, not Vagina, folks.
I know.
Regina, Saskatchewan, Saskatoon. Those are 2 of the major cities. Then we Winnipeg and Brandon, and then you go to Ontario, so and so, so and so.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was doing on my list. It says past life regression. So there was a couple. There was a guy who was he works as a bodyguard, but he also works as a bodyguard, and how the guy shaved his head, big bulky burly guy.
Yeah.
He's got a girlfriend, and she was curious about past life regression. So I said to them, I said, well, I'm not going to do it here in the show. We can do it in my hotel room. So the girlfriend boyfriend came up. And so we did start the session with the girl. Now, the boyfriend never believed in this past life regression stuff, but he watched it, and then he said, can you do me too? And I said, sure. So I worked with him, and I took him back in time. And I said to him, where are you now? And he says, he was telling me that he was a carpenter, but he was very sad and very down. And he actually was one of the most important people that what he had to build. He was the architecture to put this whole thing together. Found out later it was a Tower of Babel.
Wow.
But in this life, at the beginning, he never believed in God.
Okay.
So I told him, I want you to do is to remember everything you've seen, even after you awaken. So in your vision, what you had seen. So he told me still details of where he was, what he did, the whole 9 years, being in that time period. So he said he'll never forget. He remembers everything now. But the cool part was, after he opened his eyes and remembered everything, he basically, and we watched him, his eyes, and the girl was there with us. I said, you need to forgive yourself and ask God's forgiveness for what you stopped believing that God wasn't there with you. We watched his eyes when they were closed. There's a bright white light lit up, very bright, flashed across his eyes and across his mouth.
Beautiful.
That was the response saying, you have been forgiven. And I said to him after he opened his eyes, do you believe in God? And he goes, very much so. Now I do. Just like that, a very big turnaround on him in his life, because he experienced something. It brought emotion to him. Here's a big, tough, burly guy. All of a sudden became a very soft-spoken man. He changed his life.
Life-changing. Yeah, but that can happen with past life regression. Just one second. I want to give a huge shout out to Clarissa Vasquez. She says in the chat room on YouTube, hey, Laura and Derrick. So I'm going to say, hey, Clarissa. I'm going to give you a shout out. I think Joe, her husband, actually was watching earlier. He messaged me on Facebook. He goes, are you guys coming? I can't hear you. And poor Joe, we've always had a few connection problems on my end, still trying to figure out Skype and patch in my guests. So I want to thank everybody out there for being patient and hanging in there till we came on the air. So thanks to everybody out there that's listening. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Angel Rock with my absolutely fascinating guest, Derrick Whiteskycloud. He's also a good friend of mine and fellow Canadian and psychic medium. If you want to join in the fun, you can, if you're listening on UPRN talkradio.com, anchovrock.com. That's streaming live, but we're on Facebook too. So you can see us on video on Facebook on the UPRN radio channel. And also, we've got a live chat room there. So feel free to join in if you've got any questions or comments. We're going to take some calls in a little while, but we got lots to still talk about because I'm going to back you up a little bit, Derrick, because this has always fascinated me. And even the many times that we've talked about this, I've never asked you, but when you were on the Annunaki ship and you connected with Sebastien Martin, and he actually lived over in Paris, or Paris, France, I remember, he was in boarding school.
Yeah.
You were talking about this almost like a bath that you went in with this liquid that healed you. Can you tell me a little bit more?
It wasn't me that I went to the bath, but I'd actually seen inside. It looked like a big giant, I would say, it was 8 feet in diameter, but it was a circular stainless steel tub. But it looked like a round circular tub, and it was about, I would say, 3 feet high in height, and it looked like, let's put it this way, a bath in chocolate, but it wasn't chocolate.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
and they were. All 3 people are inside. It was actually like a healing mud probably, and they were sitting back, and their neck was sitting on, like, laying back on cushions on the edge. And apparently, I asked about, like, why are these people in there, and they said all 3 had cancer, and they're all from Earth. And so basically, whatever was in that vat, that's what was curing them.
Because I remember Sebastien talking about that he didn't remember, but then as he got older, became like he had no interest in any of this stuff. I remember when he was talking to Johnny and you, and he remembers being in there as a baby. Do you remember that in the video, that part of the interview?
Not him. I mean, I don't remember everything that he talked about himself, but. I mean, on my first adventure with them, when I was 8 years old, and I lived in Manitoba, in the town of Brandon, city of Brandon, and I remember looking at this. I mean, we didn't have TV back then. I mean, this is back in the 1960s, folks. We never had television, so I had no idea what a UFO was, what ships were, or aliens. This was back in 1966, and there was actually, apparently, I found out just about a couple months back, I found a newsprint in Brandon, Manitoba, of the story about alien ships or UFOs flying across the sky. Well, I remember supposedly waking up, and I don't remember being in bed, but I remember standing, and then I look out the window, and there was a spaceship flying across the sky, or looked like something flying across the sky, looked like rainbows behind it. And no focus, not LGBTQ. Rainbow vapor going across the sky with the ship. And I got up and I went to my mom and dad and told them that I saw a spaceship. And my parents are going, yeah, sure. Like, like, oh, imagination. So my mom had to go shopping that morning, and she says, I'm going to go downtown, you're going to come with me, and we're going to take the bus. And I said, sure. So we get on the bus. Now, in the buses, back in those years, the bus driver was allowed to have his transistor radio, and he would put on the dash of his bus. So basically, he would hear the news.
Right.
Or he listened to the music, and it used to calm the riders, the people that are in the bus, enjoying themselves. So in the meantime, I'm sitting in the front, just across from the bus driver. My mother's sitting behind the bus driver, and the news came on.
Right.
And they said that they had well over 1,000 phone calls at the radio station in Brandon, Manitoba, CKY, over 1,000 phone calls saying there were sightings of UFOs flying across the sky. My mother looked at me and she said, I'll never stop doubting you again.
Oh, really? Oh, because you said your mom always supported you with your abilities.
She was like, okay, yeah, he has a great imagination. But until it was proven, my mother never, then years later, my mother never doubted me. Whatever I had seen, she believed. Because the proof was there.
Well, you're for people that don't understand Métis, would you mind explaining and some of your healing abilities and some of the medicine that you bring forward with it? Because I think that's absolutely fascinating as well, Derek.
Well, in our culture, I mean, I didn't really follow too much of it
Mhm.
in the big time when I was back in the 1960s and 1960s. But I mean, my mother was quite the person. She would show me things about, what was medicine. I
Mhm.
remember my mother making poultices,
Right.
and if I had to end up when I remember getting chicken pox,
Mhm.
when I got sick in school, and next thing you know, they didn't take you to the hospital. They took you, and you went back home, and my mother
Right.
would make a poultice made out
Yeah.
of bread. She'd make fresh bread,
Mhm.
and then she'd cut up in pieces and make a poultice, and she'd get it wet. She'd soak it all in your body, and you're wrapped around this big wrapping of bread.
Did you use milk with it, Derek? I'm just
Yeah,
asking because I
yeah,
I believe in a lot of this stuff. Yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
with milk in it, and then what it did, it took the infection out into the poultice, and then she would take it all up, and
Mhm.
she would throw it in the garbage. Like she would bury it. Not garbage, but take it out and she'd bury it.
Yeah.
Um, but it was on a flannel sheet because basically the flannel
Always flannel.
itself,
Yeah.
always flannel, and it kept you warm. But she did it. She heated it up. I remember my mother. She always made sure that the poultice was warm, not cold. Once it was gone, she left it on you for at least, I think maybe overnight.
Yeah.
I woke up and then she would take it off me, unwrap me, and you could see all the sores starting to heal.
Yeah.
Normally, when people get chicken pox, it would take you about 2-3 weeks before all your chicken
Yeah.
pox goes away. My chicken pox was gone in a
Mhm.
matter of 3-4 days because of my mom knowing how to do this naturally. That's her medicine. And so I was, I learned a lot from my mom.
Mhm.
And but that's the traditional way. Like my grandmother is from the Bear River Reserve in Nova Scotia. She's a Mi'kmaq Ojibwe.
Mhm.
That's my mom's mom, and she was taken from the reserve at the age of 10 and forced as a slave
Mhm.
to a family. There was slavery in First Nations to slavery back in the 19.
Dell's
Uh,
grandmother, very much the same from out
yeah,
west.
there
Yeah, she
was
was free.
slavery in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick for Indigenous people. They would take the children off the reserves like a 60s scoop. They
Mhm.
weren't allowed to leave the families, those slave families, until they're 21 years old.
Mhm.
Um, and yet that's never mentioned in public. So there wasn't just residential schools. I'm a recipient of residential school for about 6 months, and then my dad took me out because the priest used to lock me up in a room because I was against what their teachings were when they had their Bible school, and I didn't agree with some of the things. I don't know why I got a big mouth. I didn't agree. I didn't practice any religious things in my family. My mom and dad did believe in God, but we didn't go to it. My mother believed. My mother felt that why should we go to a building that people all they do is criticize you. Um,
Mhm.
she always believed knowing there's a God creator around you, you're being watched over. If you want to pray, you can pray at home or pray anywhere you want. You don't have to be in a building, and
Mhm.
that was my mother's belief. And but I think because she learned that from her mom. Um, but at the time, when I said about my father, took me out of resident school because they locked me up. So my father got mad, and when I told him, like the priest told me not to say anything. If I told him anything, if I told my parents, apparently I was supposed to go to hell. Like these trying to scare the hell out of you, so to speak, and say
Mhm.
you're going to go to hell. And the priests are trying to make you feel that you were not a worthy child.
Mhm.
And how would I know certain things in the Bible? Like why, I would say, no, I don't believe that. And I'd
Mhm.
say, no, he did this. Here I'm quoting what I'm told from them up there.
Mhm.
What's the truth? And they didn't like that, so they grabbed me by the arm and squeezed me. They really grab me by the arm and squeeze real hard, and they drag you to this room and they lock you in the room, and there's a little tiny window about this big, and all you see is wheat fields.
Mhm.
Um, and I had to sit on this wooden chair, and there's no air conditioning in this building, and it's 125 heat
Oh
and the
my.
weather outside then in summertime. And I guess when I came home and I told my parents about it, I was very quiet first, and my father and my mother knew there was something wrong with me. So they
Mhm.
said, okay, tell us what happened. And I told my dad what happened. My father took me with him back to the school. and beat up the priest.
Oh,
And
wow.
he says, I have the right to because I'm white. And he got the priest to take his collar off. And my dad, and the priest said, why? He says, take off your collar. And so he took off his collar, and my dad knocked him out cold, one shot. And he said, you touch my son again, I'll kill you. And that was it. And then I never went back. But, you know, there were things that happened in the past. But my grandmother, she was taken to residence, not residence school, but she was taken as a slave back, this is late 1800s. So those things did happen. But historically, there's a lot of good stuff to it. When I grew up, I didn't really know much about my grandmother. I mean, I didn't really take it to heart. Recognizing myself as Métis, I thought I'm like everybody else and just a mixed kid, and something they would call us a half-breed. And I didn't take it to heart as being negative. I love the word half-breed. That means I was taking great pride. My mother said, take great pride in both of your cultures, both your sides, and I did. And my mother took care, when she was a little girl, 16, 17, when she was a young nurse, she would work in the North Hill in Brandon, and she would take care of the TB First Nations women, and she would care for them. And my mother was very well recognized and very respected in the First Nations community. So, yeah, but I didn't really, like I tell people, I'm not Red River Métis. I'm not the Saskatchewan, Manitoba Métis that you would see Red River. I didn't know, but apparently I am supposed to be partially in that too. But I didn't really look for that. But I had a strong connection to my Indigenous side growing up, but I didn't really know what to go with it, how to use it. I just followed.
How did it all come together for you?
Sorry?
How did it all come together? How did it all come together for you then?
It all started coming together when I actually started. I met a good friend of mine. Became a good friend of mine. His name was Dale Haggerty, and Dale was he was a glazier, and a glazier is a person that actually designs and installs windows, but he was one of the most talented glaziers around. He was very well known in Vancouver region he'd do places that most people wouldn't even install windows.
Right.
Both him and his brother Alan. And so anyways, I got to know Dale where I lived. I lived in a mobile home park, and where both him and I got to know each other. And one day, Dale introduced me to a group of people that actually had a Métis museum in Surrey, in BC here. And so I came with Dale. I used to hang out with him and watch what was going on. And I was just, I was so fascinated by the history of the Métis. But I didn't see myself being Métis because, someone says to me, well, you should apply for your Métis status. And I'm going like, I don't have enough. I don't think I have enough. I didn't bother. And they said, well, just give us what you got in your history. So I gave my grandmother's family's background and went further back to Shopman and all that. And that was on a Monday. And then Thursday they called me up and said, come get your card. It was like so quick. And then I said, okay, thanks. And so what do I do with the card? It just basically says you're Métis. That's pretty well it. But I didn't really pay attention to what was there. The card, put the card in my wallet, left it at that. But I hung out with Dale, and with both him and I both became really close, good friends, to like brothers, more than anything. And anything that Dale and I did, we try to get involved more in the community. And it ended coming to the point where through the years, Dale was taken in. Now, I found out that Dale actually was Métis. He didn't even know he was Métis himself to the point, but Dale had more history in the Métis history. He has two of his ancestors that are part of the chain gang that was all to do with Louis Riel, and they're the ones that were and part of the Battle of Batoche. But anyways, I just like to be there by Dale's side as his best friend and support. And there was a couple of elders that used to watch me all the time, and then they would say to Dale, well, what does he want? Dale says nothing. He just likes to be there and help. And no, he wants something. No. And I would watch, but I never said anything. And I was always there for Dale, and I was there for the community. And then one of the elders, her name is Teresa Dion, and she's now passed away, but she was a veteran. And she took me aside and she says, "You and I are going to work together a lot." She says, "And I'm going to have you, and I've been watching you." She says, "You're not greedy, you're not selfish." I said, "I'm not. No, I love to work with people, I love to work with the community." Mm-hmm. And she says, "You're going to go a long way." And so her and I became very good friends. And she was very well respected veteran.
So by hanging around with this, not hanging around, but really getting to know your friend and with this beautiful culture and group of people. The reason why I'm leading you into this question, because I know you're a smoke reader, and then I want to talk about some of the beautiful artisanal crafts that you make, because that comes, like the work that you do, that's traditional work. I'm going to show some on camera here, because those are the only tools I work with for people listening out there in my healing work. They're powerful, they're beautiful, they're well made. So how did you make that jump into realizing you're a smoke reader? And
well, being a smoke reader, that comes from Manitoba, in my upbringing, because a lady friend of mine who's now passed away, she was also a medium. And she was actually one of the very first smoke readers. And they used to do, in Manitoba, actually it's one of the most haunted provinces in Canada. And that's where I was born, in Winnipeg, Brandon region. And because its settlement there was back in the 1650s, so it's very, very haunted. If anybody ever wants to make a trip to one of the most haunted provinces in Canada, is go to Winnipeg. And
then come visit my house.
Yeah, in Winnipeg, you're going to get knocking on the ceiling, knocking on the walls to communicate. This is not just, you're not going to be there's not just a medium coming in the room. We used to do seances, and you get knockings on the walls and knockings on the ceilings. And I'm not talking about rats in the ceilings or maybe somebody's on the second floor rapping down back at you. I did seances in a high-rise apartment that was made of concrete. On the walls, there's rapping on the walls, and outside the building we were researching, and there's no way you can actually knock outside on the wall because it's all done in brick. And there are so many things that have happened in my life when I started getting involved in seances, and that relates to the Métis as well, because I was down to visit my cousin, and who lives in Winnipeg, and we got so involved in around the paranormal. And I decided, because I grew up in a haunted house, but to me it was normal. Here's an 8-year-old kid growing up and just seeing these invisible people, but in my eyes, I saw them as what I'm talking to you. So it became to the point that I had to literally, I had to reach out and see if I can touch you. Now, if you're not there, because I had people who used to stand there, stare at me, and then they're saying, "There's that crazy kid again." And then I'm going like, "Oh, I overheard that," so I'm going like, "Oh, okay, you're invisible." I never called them dead. I always say, invisible people. So, but yet to me it was normal. I have a regular conversation.
With the smoke reading, how does that work, Derrick? Because I've only met one other smoke reader, and I've never understood, like, do you see, like, do you kind of almost scry with the smoke? Like you get into a meditative space and see what messages come through, or how does that work? Are you able to?
Well, being smoke reading,
I want to say, by the way, while you're just looking that up, Derrick, hi, Mr. West. Thank you for joining us too. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, I was trying to go to my page to write down, to get the word first. There's actually the name for smoke reading. I forgot to mention that. I forgot, it's been so many years now. That's okay. But what it is, you take a candle and you take a piece of cardboard. It has to be something like this bright white, and you just visualize, like you'll say, okay, I want to make contact with someone who's in this room, and then take the cardboard and just go over the candle smoke.
Okay.
Part, and you just swirl it around, and then take it away to the point where it doesn't get burnt, and then you look at the card, and actually it will show a face. It'll give you a face of a person. My
tea leaf reading, not the same, but I mean with what's left over residually in the way of what you see.
Yeah, my when one lady said, when I was doing the class, I was teaching this, and then one lady said to me, she said, well, how do you know these are really real faces? I said, watch this. I said, Dad, if you're here, can you actually appear on this cardboard paper? And then I did the smoke reading over the candle, brought it back and showed the girl, and I said, that's my dad. And then I went to the website and a picture of my father, and I compared it, and it was exactly my father.
Wow, that's
So,
fascinating.
that's what they do, because spirit people can communicate through anything that relates to smoke, light, clouds, mist,
Electricity.
electricity. They're going to try their darndest to make contact with you, and they're not going to, they love doing it, and as much as they possibly can. If they can't use that, then they're going to use some sort of electrical connection with you, whether it's a radio, television, white noise, you name it. Now, mind you, today very few people actually use any kind of television that relates to white noise, because you don't get the white screen no more. Every channel has for a perfect connection. But if you have a regular television, and have one with you, and just turn on the television, and you'll get a white screen, and then you ask someone in spirit that's in the room if they can appear in the white screen. They're going to do it. And how I know it's been proven, because when I worked at CFUN 1410, I went through 3 producers. When I were doing my show, I scared the crap out of them, because my monitor and their monitor would show someone who's passed away, their face would show up on the screen.
No
freaking
way.
them out. Yeah, because basically the monitor is actually saying line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4 for phone lines. And yet, sometimes even the phone lines are crossover from 1 to 4 and 3 to 2. Spirit would actually manipulate the phone calls.
I'm surprised they didn't say, Derrick, don't come back into work at night.
Well, here's a crazier thing. There is a ghost that once in a while walks in that radio studio. And I'll tell you the story. CFUN, remember the folks, CFUN 1410. 1964, the Beatles came to Vancouver, and they appeared in the radio station, and they did their first interview in Vancouver. There, 1410 CFUN. John Lennon loved it so much that he wanted to come back to Vancouver again. Well, his spirit, I guess, because there's a few of us that actually used to do paranormal shows, or basically mediumship on radio. I'm apparently the only one that did it on that station. 2 people saw, when I was there, 2 people saw, they swore they saw John Lennon's ghost walk down the hallway toward them.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. Now, did anybody get a picture?
Because we recorded it, we got John Lennon's voice.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to share that with me, because Derrick and I talk lots off air. But what I do want to do is, because believe it or not, I told you this was gonna go by quick. We had so much, we barely touched on most of the stuff. It's almost 11:15 p.m. my time, so 8:15 p.m. your time. We've got about another 45 minutes. Yeah. What I'm going to tell you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the UPRN YouTube chat room, or we do have a phone number you can call in. I got to grab my my notes here. The phone number to call in is 504-273-7379. If you've got a question, maybe you need a message from Spirit, or you've got a question for a fantastic guest here, Derrick Whiteskycloud. We're going to keep talking here, because I also want to show, and Derrick's got his alien head. Derrick, actually, I didn't even mention this. He's a talented, he makes beautiful ventriloquist puppets and stuff like that. He's a drummer. He teaches how to do drumming, but he makes the most beautiful, I guess they're native. They're of your culture, from Métis culture, but they are powerful healing tools. This is one I use in my crystal Reiki with quartz that I got from Derrick. Derrick, this is an antler, is it not? You said, but from a female.
Yeah, it's the tip of a deer horn, and then there's a crystal on the end. Depends on what kind of crystal you're using. Every crystal has its purpose for healing. I show people how it's used for. Now, to understand what crystals mean, crystals have been used by the indigenous people for thousands of years, and also extraterrestrials are using crystals. So that's how I got more connected into it. And I'll tell you why, because I was given a long crystal.
Okay.
And if you ever get a chance to go on YouTube and type in Johnny Enoch, Derrick Whiteskycloud, you'll see that specific type of crystal. Now, this one here is that crystal that I was given from the extraterrestrials is not from this earth.
Wow.
It's actually a record keeper. It has everything about me in that crystal, and it's a key. And they put it into the panel, and then they just slightly fit it in there, and it comes up all the screen of all of my past lives, everything of me in it.
I want to see that one, Derrick. We haven't shown me that one before.
And I showed Johnny Enoch, and I said to him, I said, "Here, hang on to this and see what you feel." And he was totally blown away. He said, "There's something about that energy that he's never felt before."
Well, a lot of crystals do actually have a lot of coating within. The reason why I chose this, I've got kind of longer, it's about the only thin part on me, I guess, I say my hands, but I knew it would fit perfectly, and it's beautiful, it's powerful. Plus, for me as a crystal Reiki energy healer, when I'm going through somebody's chakras and doing some balancing, and it involves a little bit of, I'm not a certified counselor, but usually whatever's going on physically or even sometimes mentally within the human body, you can usually relate it to what you find with the chakras. So this is powerful. And crystal quartz, you can set the intention to hold the energy of any crystal. And it's also you can cleanse crystals with it. It's powerful. So, and the other thing I want to point out is you don't kill any animals for this either, right? These are donated to
these
you.
Are all fallen. Yeah, everything's all fallen.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to find out what I do, you can always go to Facebook and type in Derrick Whiteskycloud. You can see I have a page called the Extra Touch Designs.
Go, you guys.
And you'll see a lot of things that I make. I started learning more. I get visions, and then when I start getting visions, I start making them.
Yep, from Spirit, you said you work with Spirit, and they give you, because this is one of my newer babies. Now, you said that this is like a black quartz, right? Like it's not jet.
Quartz. Yeah, that's not jet. It's black quartz. The black quartz is a very powerful stone. A lot of people don't realize what black quartz can be used for. Anybody who's involved in the extraterrestrial field, that's a buffalo horn that you're holding on to, the end of it. So it has a purpose. Everything that the animal has in its life, whenever its life has been given, animals are also, they're part of our energy. So anything that, whether I wear furs, certain kinds of furs, I make bags, I make different kinds of things, but I always honor even feathers. I honor every animal that's lost.
Oh, I pulled out my big baby next. So.
And I just finished making this one here.
I love this.
So this is funny because I got two walking staffs that I made, and one of them was I just had a perfect vision, and Lorilei was actually talking about her having to walk. So
use
I thought,
cane. Okay, use a cane.
Using a cane, I thought, well, you can do better than just using a cane. So I said, I got something here you may want to look at. So I showed her my two accomplishments. And I fell in love with it. And I did an amethyst walking staff with an amethyst point, and then there's chipstick coming out from all the way around, and so you can see some of the pieces, and so that's her walking staff. It's all done in elk hide, and so that's her baby. She walks with that in the bush. Now I'll tell you why. I don't go through the bush very often, but. Well, I'll tell you, I actually made myself a walking staff many years ago, and I put a crystal point on top of it, and actually they had three sisters on it before, and I was supposed to be doing a healing circle one night, and I heard a smack crash, and the three sisters, they were one complete unit, fell on the floor, and all three of them broke together off the mantle. Wow. And I knew then they were supposed to be divided up, and so I made three different kinds of healing tools. One was a walking staff, one was a healing tool, and then the other, I can't remember what I use it for, but I use all three. So I got myself a red diamond willow, and I put a crystal on the end of it, and I use it to walk in the bush. And I actually walked in the bush, and there's black bears. Now, black bears are very vicious. They wouldn't think twice to kill you. I was standing next to a black bear, and he never even touched me because I actually had my walking staff with me.
Wow, I would believe that because this is powerful. You guys, this is powerful. And the way Derrick makes things, like these are beautiful feathers. Again, no animals are killed for this. Like it's either something as, all parts have been used. Somebody, like we've talked about, say a deer been hit or something,
Yeah.
like you get
Those are
people.
wild turkey feathers.
Yeah, wild turkey feathers. And look at this, you guys. It's all braided. I'm trying to make sure on the camera you can see this. All braided. It's so soft. And then everything.
Lily is going to have to take a picture of herself walking with her staff.
Yes, I will. I did. Well, I sent you a video because his wife is an absolute sweetheart, you guys, Marina. I'm going to give a shout out to Marina. She told me what she went through believe me, and I live to drive to where Derrick lives out in BC would take me probably a week. And she went all over to make sure she got the perfect she ended up finding carpet tubing, and Derrick made this. I wanted to show people. This is how dedicated these two are. He even made this special wooden lid with a little piece of leather, and it came all in one piece. All my crystals have all through the mail. But Derrick, you should tell them, because he even makes, for those who like dream catchers, he's making these 3D dream catchers. And again, I don't get a kickback or commission. I just believe in his tools. They're powerful. These are the only ones I use with my healing work, because I have tons of crystals everywhere. And like I said, these two are my favorite. So I had to give you a shout out, Derrick, for sure.
Yeah, crystals are used for many, many things, many uses. People can use them for protection, recovery from any type of emotional, mental issues, even when you travel, to keep your energy up. So, crystals, people don't realize, even if you go to a river, you just walk along the river or lake, whatever have you, if you pick up a stone and you say, I don't know why I feel I need to pick up the stone, because it's there for you to pick up. It's because it has a purpose. And so, it's there for you to use. Some people have belief systems that you pick up a stone, you hold on to it for a while, and then you put it back where it was. Everybody has, you never know what it's needed for. But there are so many uses for crystals, and even for example, if you want them to put above in your walls, in your house. I use rock salt lamps a lot. I have quite a few of them in my room, my working room, and people feel very relaxed in the healing room, because that's what rock salt lamps are. Not when they're turned off. The light the light itself is what emits the energy. And I've seen people say, "Oh, I bought a rock salt lamp. It's not doing anything." I said, "Well, is the light on or off?" "Well, off." No, it has to be on, because it has to emit the energy from the warmth of the light. So when they start using them, they'll say, "Oh, that's what it does." See, so basically our body vibrates to rocks and stones. Even if we stand next to, if you ever get into a rock shop or any place,
but we're made of minerals. We're made of minerals. That's
what. Made of minerals, yeah. We have salt bodies.
Potassium chloride, we have magnesium, we have calcium, we have so many. No wonder. I didn't mean to cut you up, but Mr. West actually had a good point in the chat room. He said, aren't crystals information drives? What's your thought on that?
A lot of people, I actually do make, well, that's why my one crystal is an information drive. The one that they used me for. But here's the crazy part. When I got the crystal from the guys on the ship, I didn't get it from them from the ship. They actually gave it to me outside the ship, and because I met them again, and when I walked into the store, I was actually walking to the crystal shop, and this lady who doesn't even know me, and I walked in the store, and she says, "About time you got here, Derrick." I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh,
really?
And she says, "I have something here for you." And there's actually a crystal laying on top of the counter. And she said, "You're supposed to take this home, and you're supposed to be using this." And this is a rock and crystal store. And she even knew I know you? She goes, "No, I don't know you." And she says, "I know of you." And she says, "You're supposed to take this." So I took it, and I felt very wow. And that's the very same one that I have here. And so after that, I left. I said, "Do I owe you any money for it?" No, no. This is supposed to be for you.
Wow.
So I left, and I came back into the store. Maybe not even 10 minutes. I said, "Oh, I got to get some more crystals." I walked in. The store changed.
What?
It changed. There was everything that was there wasn't. It was a rock and crystal store, but the lady never existed.
I've heard lots of stories like that. Not about a crystal store,
I
but
asked the guy who was in the store. I said, "Where's the lady that just finished giving me the crystal?" He said, "What lady?"
I've heard that story before many
I'm
times.
going like, "Are you kidding me?" No, I'm serious. Like I walked in there and I going like, "No, I just got here. I just got this crystal from her." He said, "That's not a mine." He said, "It's not mine." He said, "Where are you coming from?" "Maybe it's next door." I said, "No, I just walked right out." That's how quick it was.
Wow, I've heard that happen with spirit, but you guys, just so you know, and again, I never was raised with this kind of stuff. My mother actually makes fun of people that do what I do. It actually comes a little bit more from my father's side, but even my water bottles, I have crystals in them because now don't go throwing crystals into a bottle of water. You got to do your homework. But certain crystals can put, and with that, dear.
Don't drop your crystal in your bottle.
Yeah. No, but some of them aren't made to go in water. Some of them aren't safe. Yeah. Like I think I got about, this one actually is supposed to be clear quartz. I bet you if I show Derrick, that's another thing too. I've had crystals. I have no idea. I've been looking to find out what they are. Rare. Show them to Derrick. He'll know exactly what they are. Because this one's got a little bit of orange. It's a clear quartz. You probably can't see it. I'll probably have to take a picture. But it's got something encoded inside of it in orange. No, I'm going to ask you this one. The girl that actually taught me crystal Reiki, what she uses crystals for, and I've seen it, and I understand about pareidolia, I understand about all this kind of stuff. But I've watched her when I was taking my course, that she does mediumship with her clear crystals. So she has an active business where people come in for crystal Reiki all day long. She will work with spirit, and they will tell her. Yeah, stuff like that. But what'll happen is, and she'll get pictures of the person, ancestors of people that are going to be coming in next. She'll know nothing about them. And then she'll take pictures of them and show them, like, say, to the client that's coming, they'll say, "Oh my gosh, that's my great grandmother," or "That's my great grandfather." And I've actually seen it live on camera when she held it up. There was a really tall, she said it was one of her guides, and a little one. Then she took it away, and 3 seconds later, she moved it up. There was now 3 within the crystal. So do you use that as well with your crystals too, Derrick?
I use this one here. This is actually one of the sisters.
Oh.
So I've had this one for many, 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 many years. So if you look at my fist holding on to it, it's
good size.
It's good size. But it has a bit of a smoky quartz in it. But anytime anybody's ever held on to it, and I allow people to use it. I mean, just to hold on to it, and some will actually feel kind of trembly. They'll actually feel as if they're going to be like, they go like, "Oh wow, that makes me feel strange." It's because they need, what the crystal's trying to do is raise their energy.
Exactly.
There are times that people feel kind of down low. Like for example, say a person's a really hard worker. You have your own business and you're totally exhausted. I recommend to wear a crystal, and it's called a carnelian, and you wear you put it in your pocket and it keeps your energy up. So big shout out to Joe. That's a hint. If you get tired and exhausted, carry a carnelian in your pocket. It's like some orangey in color, but just wear it in your pocket. You'll begin to feel even better. You're not going to feel as much exhausted as you feel. And it helps a whole lot. Like anytime I hold on to this, I get a lot of really cool feelings. The other one crystal that I like using a lot too, and this gets around, this is called a fire agate. So if anybody's ever felt that they need to feel protected of anything that's negative, I mean really, really negative, people do have psychic energy. They like to drain you at times.
You're reading my mind again, Derrick. I was just going to talk about that.
They don't understand why they deal with psychic vampirism. You wear this, okay?
Okay.
And this one, and in one way, this one reminds me of a claw.
I
know. If you hold it this way, it looks like a bear claw.
It does, yeah.
So I mean, here's my. I have many bear claws. Where's my bear claws? I have many kinds of bear claws.
You're gonna do Derrick and Laura's crystal show tonight.
That's a real bear claw. This is a grizzly bear.
Wow.
And but
Those
I get
have
them.
a lot of magic and power in them too.
These are meant to protect you. Basically, anytime I wear a bear claw or certain medicines, it's because I'm bear clawing. This is how I'm wearing this. But as I said before, crystals and stones all have a purpose, and people say, "Oh, that's beautiful. It's pretty." Well, the word "pretty" is nice. Our parents that used to have they would wear different kinds of jewelry, and especially many years ago, my mother used to wear hematite bracelets.
Yeah.
Or she would wear a multifaceted, different kinds of colors of crystals in her on her bracelet, and she thinks it's just beautiful. Little did she realize that actually was a protection item that she was wearing. And yet back in the 70s and 80s, no one really knew what it was for.
No.
So today, now people do. People actually wear rainbow jewelry or chakra jewelry, but no one ever used to wear chakra. Okay, people are not knowing what to do regarding chakra. Like they say, when you say the word chakra, okay, what does chakra mean? Well, chakras means that the balance of your energy, but also we have what you call up and perpendicular is a chakra, and our chakras go way up high into the universe, way down the ground, the center
down below your feet.
Yeah. So there's so many different varieties of items that we use that we carry with us. So I always carry not a whole bunch of crystals, but I wear what I feel I need to wear. Some people will become so overly dressed with crystals all over their wrists and their necklaces.
Yeah.
Look at me, I got lots of crystals. Well, you either wearing it.
You're defeating the purpose.
You're defeating the purpose. You have to wear. I mean, I understand the people that are really loving the crystals a lot. If you think you need a lot of them, that's fine. But if you don't necessarily have to wear a whole bunch of them, because basically one can also go against the other.
Absolutely.
And that can also make you feel unbalanced. So you have to understand that if you're going to wear, say, hematite on one side and a carnelian on the other side, that's great, because one is for energy and one is for grounding.
Grounding, yeah.
Not everybody has to have a hematite. Hematite is not always used for grounding, but you know what? If you put two hematite stones together and clack them, when you do this and you crash them together, they're actually removing negative energy from you. You can be clacking that around that person. They're going to go like, "Oh, wow, what are you doing?" Because it's doing its job. Hematite was not to be just used sitting on its own. It likes to be used continuously. So I make hematite rattles.
Love it.
Anytime I shake those rattles around the person, people go like, "Whoa,
what are you doing?"
It's clearing me, right?
Yeah.
So that's a hint for her, because one day I will make a prediction that Lorilei is going to get herself a hematite rattle, because she'll be using it. She'll be using it on other people.
I will be, yeah.
When she's doing demonstrations of her work.
Yeah.
You see? So there's certain things that she'll be drawn to that'll help her, but it'll help others. So when she gets more into crystals and stones, like everybody else who's listening and watching, you'll end up having attraction to certain kinds of stones. People would say, "Oh, I like this stone more than that one."
I know what my attraction are. Like, I love where I live is well known for Super Sevens, and this is actually a really rare crystal. I use this a lot with my healing work. This is an Auralite 23. It's an emerald Auralite 23. Super 7. Another one of my favorites is Moldavite. A lot of people, though, with the more powerful crystals, usually the ones that end in the ite, right? Some people, if you're sensitive to the energy, it might be a little bit too powerful. This is one of my favorites that I work with is selenite, because it's very high vibrational and it helps connect with the angelic realm. And that's why we're called the angel rock. So yes, I see. If you guys really want to know, when I talk to Derrick, what he does, and he works on his stuff, he's in his workroom. You can see how beautifully organized. Mine's not so.
My stuff behind me is kind of messy right now. My wife says, "Oh, look what you're doing."
No, it's beautifully organized. I always tell him he gives me crystal envy, but I do want to tell our listeners, because we're running out of time here. You can show people while you're doing that. It's 11:35, so if you do want to call in and you want to ask Derrick a question, or maybe you need a message from Spirit, feel free, or you can post it it in the YouTube chat room on the UPRN YouTube channel. We're live on there in video. So we're showing all these crystals. So if you're listening, you're probably wondering why they're holding it up. We can't see it. Head over to YouTube. You can check us out. Also, the phone number is 504-273-7379. We'd love to talk to you. But Derrick, we still got enough time because I would love for you to share some of your paranormal investigation things that you've done over the years. We've even worked on some stuff recently over distance. Thank God Derrick got my butt out of, was able to help me out. I was talking a little bit earlier on Seraphine Hurley's show, Infinite Inquisition, that somebody that I never expected in a million years had a very, very, very strong demonic attachment. We believe it was demonic. It completely overtook her, and it wouldn't even allow me to connect with anybody. Derrick and I are 3 hours apart, and we kind of battled it together, if you will, a little bit. But I'd love for you to share, Derrick, some of your paranormal experiences, if that's okay.
Sure. I did work with a paranormal team for a couple of years. I actually had my own paranormal team many years ago. I had a bunch of women that were, there's 4 ladies that wanted to learn how to become a paranormal investigator. So these are 4 wonderful mediums that they were training. And then I had my good friend Dave, who actually was the camera guy. And he was the one that convinced me to get into doing paranormal. This is like over 20 years ago.
Right.
So, and he wanted me to start doing a TV series. He wanted to call it The Walking Psychic or Downtown Psychic or something. Anyways, and it's many years ago. So he would have the camera on me, and I would walk up to people and give them readings. And we had fun doing that for a while. But I wanted to, and he himself actually is a camera guy for some TV shows. There's actually a TV series called My Mom's a Medium, and he's actually he's one of the camera guys for that show. Her
husband's name is Dave.
Yeah, that's it.
Carmen.
And he's done a few other shows as well. So, I got a lot of good friends that are in the Hollywood region, in I guess to say the Hollywood scene. That came to me for readings, that sort of thing. There was a young lady that actually I read for and told that she would win like an Academy Award, like a global award, and now she's this is many years ago. I would say about 10 years ago or more.
Yeah.
And she now is a famous actress. So
wow.
I've watched her.
You always used to rub it in. My favorite TV show. I don't watch much TV. I don't have time, but I never miss Supernatural. It's the last season coming up. It films in BC. So you used to always tease me that they were just kind of down the street, depending on where you were.
Well, those guys actually used to do their TV show or do their series out of Vancouver, here in the Vancouver North, and or we call it Hollywood.
Hollywood of the North.
Yep, and also, but the young lady that I did the reading for that predicted it, I'll give you a hint. She's one of the girls that actually was in the TV series Superman. And so that's all I can say.
Okay.
So Smallville, I should say, the TV series Superman.
Smallville, okay.
And now she's done other TV shows since then. So she's a really wonderful young lady, and then I see her energy was just absolutely just phenomenal. I read for someone actually a few months back who actually works for Hollywood, and I did some readings for them. It was a call-in line from another previous radio station that I worked out of, and told her what was going to happen. And I saw them running 3 TV shows, and she came back and called me and told me yes, it did happen.
Cool.
So, I love
evidential proof.
People. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, and
because
I'm what you call a remote viewer.
Oh, we haven't even touched on that because I was going to ask you. You pick if you want to talk about remote viewing or some of the really cool, interesting stuff that you've run into in your travels with investigation. You pick because I'm into remote viewing too. I'm
a remote viewer. Basically, many years ago, when we had the Twin Towers in New York, when the towers went out. About a few days before the 9/11, I had a young guy come see me, and I told him, I said, if I were you, don't go back to work right now. You can't go back to work. Take 2 weeks off. Just go on a vacation. But I said, the dealings that you're going to have in Mexico is not going to do well for you right now. They'll be sitting back and thinking for at least a month. and I know this is going to be a big financial deal for you, and this is going to be, that you're going to need it or wanting to need it. But I said, nothing's going to happen for the next few weeks, and you need to take some time off. Just don't go back to work. Right. And he says, are you sure? I said, just don't go back to work. I'm just told to tell you, don't go back to work. Take 2 weeks off. And he said, okay, I'll take your word for it. So he didn't go back to work. And he called me 3 days after the 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And he phoned me back. He said, Derrick, you freaked me out. And I said, why? And he says, well, you told me not to go back to work. And I said, yes, I did. And he says, well, I work for the New York Stock Exchange.
Oh, wow.
And so apparently, I saved his life from spirit, keep convincing him not to go. So he was like blown away. And the other one of the major predictions that I did was a good friend of mine, Ron Bard, who we used to call him the super psychic. He's based out of New York, was based out of New York City. He's now recently passed away. And he was a good friend of mine. I've known him for many years. Both him and I worked, we would always joke back and forth with each other. And he was well known in the Hollywood industry as well. And he was well known in Japan. And he called me up one day and he says, Derrick, I want you to come with me in March. He says, I'll give you half the money if you come with me. I work for corporate companies and we're going to do predictions for corporate companies and help them doing psychic readings. So basically, you're earning like $5,000 an hour because it's a high cost of living up there.
Gee, send them my way.
Yeah. So, anyways, I said, he said, I'll give you half of that just so you can come up with me. And I said, because I'll give you some, because I have way too many clients. There's no way I can handle it. And we would be there for a couple of weeks. And I said, sure. Mm-hmm. So I got stuff all ready to go. And about 3 days before the flight, I was having nightmares. I mean, major nightmares. I could see flood. I could see fire. I could see people dying. I mean, it was happening, earth shaking, the whole 9 yards. And I'm going like, oh man. And it just didn't happen once. It happened too many nights, for about 3 nights. And
I said, pay attention. Remember, I said if it happens in a short period of time.
I got to call Ron. So I called Ron. I said, Ron, you can't go. We can't go. We can't go to Japan right now. Something's going to happen there. I don't know what it is. Just can't go. Mm-hmm. And I said, we're going to have to cancel it maybe next time. And he says, how about this? We'll go and you can come back with me in August. Because that was March. We can do it twice. We can go twice a year. And I said, okay. But he said, but if I were you, I said, really don't think it's a good idea. He says, oh, I'll be okay. He says, now being Ron, I'm surprised he didn't hear from Spirit. Or maybe he did. I don't know. But he took his daughter with him. He went to Japan. And 3 days after he got to Japan, they had the tsunami.
Wow.
And he was stuck in Sapporo for a whole month in the hotel. So, but by the time he got back, and time went by, and Ron got sick.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, and then he passed away. So I strongly felt that there was something wrong. That something happened in Japan, that he got sick from that and passed away.
I wouldn't doubt it though, Derrick. Have you seen that video? Not to get off track here, because it kind of goes hand in hand with this. And it's not CGI'd, it's not photoshopped, but somebody was filming high up from a balcony as the sea started to come in. This creature comes up that's white and starts climbing the building, and then it disappears right from sight, and then you see it hop from one building to the other. I don't know. I'm getting goosebumps telling you. That's my sign for truth. I don't know what it was.
I remember seeing that one, yeah. And the thing is that
there's all kinds of stuff, because my ex-husband is actually of Japanese descent, and I actually have some native French Canadian as well, but we're talking about the Métis and stuff, but even with the Japanese culture, it's one of the older cultures. And I believe, I've always said, when things persist over eons and generations, like dragons and mystical creatures like that, I think there's a lot of that stuff.
Well, I can talk to you about dragons. Lovely talk. I can tell you stories.
I love dragons.
But with Ron, I mean, I don't want to scare everyone about Japan, but Japan is actually one of the most safest countries I would ever go to. I would love to go to Japan, seriously, still do. But there's a friend of mine who married a woman in Japan, from Japan, and they go back there every 6 months. But he says that there are certain areas of Japan that still has the radiation. He says you just got to watch carefully. Just be smart about it.
They had a nuclear reactor meltdown with that tsunami, I remember.
They did, I believe, yeah. I mean, every country, they're trying to protect the public, but they're also trying to protect their own government too. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to always tell you everything what really did happen. But I mean, the thing is that when you make a prediction, I don't like to look at prediction as being the end of the world. I look at prediction as saying there's some things that we need to make some changes.
Change, yeah, exactly.
And we need to fix those things. And I actually had someone who wrote to me just the other day, or the day before yesterday, and said to me, do you think President Trump is still going to be in government? And I said, well, yes, he will be one more time, but he won't last through that.
Mm-hmm.
There will be something that will happen that there's no way he can get away with it, and then there will be shackles placed upon his wrists.
Mm-hmm.
But the government there'll be a lot of people that will be arrested, not just one person. So
I think we're seeing that already start to happen.
This will be worse than what happened back in the 70s.
Ooh. Well, it's already starting to happen already. I think the empire is starting to crumble. We just at the tip of the iceberg right now. That's
But I mean, that's all I can say. I'm not going to go up against it. I mean, that means like if I'm making that prediction, then all of a sudden, me telling that story, this gets shared, and then they won't let me cross the border.
Well, you'll know why, Derrick. You'll know why.
Cross the border.
Yeah, but sometimes too, and we didn't even touch on something. I'm going to have you back on here. We just barely touched on stuff. But, sometimes when we speak it into existence, and like you said, some people make some changes, whatever. I mean, time, we've got free will, right? Time can change. And like I said, again, when we speak it into existence, there's time for change. Now, the chances of Donald Trump getting this message that you just, well, you never know, but...
There's always some secret messengers in there somewhere.
Yeah, you never know.
YouTube, Facebook, somewhere they're going to say, oh, you can't talk about him. Well, he'll find out. He may think I'm crazy. Some people say, oh, you're crazy. Like I said before, I've made predictions and they've all come true. And but I never tell. Here's one thing that most people don't realize. It's not the end of the world. My mother used to say that it's, when's the world going to come to an end? It's not. Never will. We will come to an end first before the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So why would you want to worry about the end of the world?
Mm-hmm.
As long as you take care of Mother Earth and take care of each other, things will be fine. But if you begin to ignore the real story, the reason why we were brought here is to learn how to take care of the earth, take care of Mother Earth. We're here to take care of everyone around us and to watch over each other, not against each other. But if you learn, this is where the Tower of Babel came in. It was teaching people how to break up with languages that cannot be understood between each other. But if you learn to work with each other, a language is by motion, not by voice.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Plus, there's many other ways to communicate besides spoken word.
Yes.
Many other ways.
Right now, I'm watching a lot of these young kids, young girls, young boys, in their 14, 15, 16 years of age that are now affecting the world just as much. And they're saying it's time to clean up your act. And you know what? I talked about that when I was a kid. It's time to clean up your act, but nobody listened. Some did, others did not. And now they're beginning to awaken. The indigenous people, the non-native people, everyone across the world are awakening up. And because it is called the Great Awakening. This is the seventh sun. This is the seventh season. This actually is called the Great Awakening of the Fire. And this is what's happening. They're talking about and I remember many, many years ago, there's a fellow by the name of Robert Ghostwolf. He's passed away now, but Robert had stated around this time will be the Great Fire. Well, right now there are great fires. There's forest fires everywhere as physical fires. Okay. The burning is happening. It's all over. So, well,
you can look at a burning too as a cleansing, right? If you think about it, right? Everything goes back to Mother Earth, the burning, and then it begins anew, the circle of life. Now, I wanted to pop in here quickly before we go off the air. Derrick, you've written a book as well. Do you want to share with people about your book a little bit?
I wrote my book back in 2002, and it's called The Spiritual Journeys with Whiteskycloud, and I wrote that book many years ago. It's automatic writing from spirit, and it took me about 6 years to write the book, and then I do all my writings, and then it took me 6 months to write it, and then I got my wife and my daughter to edit it for me, and it's been very successful through the years. And now we have a second generation now that read my books, and it's helped. They've actually come up to me and said to me that they've really helped helped them a lot, even as children. Some people use them as bathroom readers. I don't care, as long as they work.
Exactly. Well, as
People
long as you're
love
not
reading them.
using it to wipe, right? No, we don't
Yeah,
want
no,
that.
not to
But
wipe. Oh no, but they're sitting. I mean, no matter where you are, but people will read them, and a lot of it's poetry as well. But again, it all relates to whether it's related to angels or stories, and these are stories from spirit and stories from people that I spoke to in spirit and tell their stories. So, I'm actually working on my second book right now, and it's going to be coming out pretty soon.
oh,
I actually have
good.
books I'm working on, and the second book, another book I'm going to do is uh, working on a title. It's I'm still working on a title. I forgot what I wrote down, but where did I put it? By the time the show is over, I'll forget about it.
Well, we can post it on. I've got the show page posted, so we can post the whatever when you come up with it. But what's the general gist of this book as well? Is it like automatic writing as well, or is it a whole different?
Again, automatic writing. It's all to do with also telling the story about what I've been doing all these years since 2002. I got so many stories to talk about. And what I want to do too is I want to put a big shout out to all the paranormal teams that are working very hard out in this industry, whether all across the world, because it's really hard for everybody that actually have been dealing with ghosts and that sort of thing. Like I said before, at the very beginning of the show, I was a part of another group that I do dearly love the guys, and I had to step back because I had to deal with a health issue, and now I've recovered. And that's all I got to do. That's all I can say right now. So my health is way better than it was before, but I had to recover. But I had to disconnect myself from everybody. I had to shut down.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to do that. Like I always say, we got to fill up our own cup first before we can give to others. And health is what our number one priority. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. So that's where you kind of got to start, right? And my prediction for you, and I've told you this before, is I do believe that you'll get back into this. Just finding the right place, right time, and right group of people to do it with, because I know that you love doing that. We are just about out of time, so I would love for people to know where to find you and where they can purchase some of these beautiful pieces that you do, including, Derrick, you also take commissions as well, right? If somebody has an idea and they're able to work with you and you're able to do that. So you want to let everybody know where they can find you?
My website is whiteskycloud@yahoo.com. That's my email, and it's whiteskycloud.com. That's my website. If you want to find me on Facebook, make me a friend on Facebook. It's Derrick Whiteskycloud. WHITESKYCLOUT or OUD, and it's Derrick DERRICK. And I have many things that I do in the industry. Plus, if anyone wants to have a look, you can go to Extra Touch Designs and see if there's anything you just want to get commissioned for me to make for you. I'm more than available. If anything you want a custom made, let me know.
And you also broadcast Métis Matters on, is it Tuesday nights live on Facebook?
I work at CFRO 100.5 FM. I also am a radio talk show host here in Vancouver. CFRO 100.5 FM, and my show is called Métis Matters Radio. It's actually now it's gone international because we do Facebook Live in the studio. So people get to see us in the studio. So if you want to see us, join me. You make a friend on Facebook, and you get to see what I do. We talk about everything that relates to Métis, but sometimes I also interview people that are actually authors, musicians, even at events that we're at. We just finished doing one this past weekend. It's called the Fusion Festival, and I was actually representing the Métis in the Indigenous village, and we got second place out of 55 countries.
Oh, good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And we used 30-foot teepee in that one.
That was huge because you were streaming live. Yes. I remember that.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Again, you've been listening to The Angel Rock with myself, Lorilei Potvin, and my great guest, Derrick Whiteskycloud. If you'd like to get a hold of me to book a reading with myself, whether it's a psychic reading, mediumship, I do a lot of healing work, energy work, crystal work like we talked tonight, or anything to do with the paranormal too. I also quite well versed in that too. You can find me on Facebook on my business page under www.facebook.com facebook.com/The Angel Rock. Or you can also find me. I have two really quickly growing, and people from all different walks of life in the paranormal and Paranormal University, as well as the Angel Rocker Tribe, which deals with more things along the esoteric kind of light worker field, paranormal, all things paranormal. Lastly, I also have a YouTube channel of the same name called the Angel Rocker Tribe. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you, Derrick, for being here too. I want to give a huge shout out to Joe Montaldo. Thank you for always, giving me this space on Monday nights to share with everybody listening. We're broadcasting on 107.7 in New Orleans, Louisiana. I want to send you all much love, much light, and wish you a beautiful week. And we'll see you next Monday night. Take care.
Take care, guys. Thanks.